No, I'm not.
I'm not going to introduce myself, okay?
I'm going to introduce you.
Okay.
Oh, Heike's here. Hi, Heike.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for joining in, everybody. So the fire's not for the next couple of slides then, Dawn? Is that what you're saying?
Do you want it up now if it's that important to you?
I got all excited. It was like, you're talking about the fireside. It's, almost a little bit cool out there today. There you go.
There you go.
Much better.
Okay. All right.
We're supposed to start thinking about summer, not friggin' sitting around a fireplace. Come on, Kevin.
It's the outdoor fire, Heike.
Yeah, there you go. We'll go with that one.
Campfire with marshmallows?
That's what we're going for.
Oh, okay, great.
We'll
I'm
stick
in.
with that. We'll stick with that, I think.
Next Taleo delivery, no coffee, marshmallows.
Sounds like a good plan. Don't disagree with that for sure.
I love the weather right now, but the wind.
I have always hated the wind in this city. Sorry. Since I moved here, it drives me crazy.
I said, okay, after this, I got a couple things to do. I'm going for a long road bike. And they're like, I take you back though. Like,
yeah, that's so hard on the body, right? So enduring. Yeah, I get it.
yeah, when you're old like me.
Whatever.
Mature.
Get out either way.
Mature is the right answer.
Mature? That's not an argument. There we go.
All right, perfect. So we're just coming up to 2 o'clock. So just after 2. So I would like to get everything started. I know everybody's time is very, very valuable. So once again, thank you for joining us on our series, Taleo Connects. We are very, very fortunate to have a couple of wonderful people to chat today about the challenges of leading remotely. Of course, we have our lovely Dawn Fiender-McCann, and yes, waving of course, and joining us from I don't think you're too far from my place anyways, Derek, but is technically from NMAX, who is a PMO executive, Mr. Derek Major. So Dawn, you can actually put back your first slide again. And I'll let you kind of get rolling, and you can kind of take off and everything with everything. So thanks again for joining us, Derek, and your time is very much appreciated.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Kevin. And thanks, Derek, for being with us. It's really great to have, just a frank chat with someone about what's going on. For those of you who don't know me or didn't see my session from last week, I've been a Taleo consultant for a couple of years. I was a VP at a software company. I'm actually on the board of governors at the Royal Military College, and I do some strategy work for folks. So having a good time, really enjoying my time at Taleo with the team here. And as part of the team here, one of our clients, Derek Major over at NMAX, a really great guy as I understand it, but I don't know him real well, so that's an advantage I think for me doing this
I did
today.
what I was supposed to
ask
do.
Derek a bunch of questions.
And that was that. So
sorry.
okay.
Come on and you mute.
You know,
Came on. Sorry. Okay, so Derek, as a PMO executive, there's lots going on, right? Lots of projects, portfolios, et cetera, et cetera. We've had to make that switch now to remote work for obvious reasons that I won't bore everyone with because we all know about them. When Derek and I talked about what we could talk about today in a fireside chat, and again, this is just a frank, open chat. It's not vetted. It's not meant to be a marketing ploy. Let's not go back and tell our kids that Derek said certain things. Maybe Chatham House rules. Everyone understands what Chatham House rules are. What's said in the session stays in the session. So Derek, I wanted to say, what was it like when you moved from that very busyness in the office where you could see the whites of everyone's eyes, and then you moved to this remote work situation? There's three things we discussed earlier. I don't know which one you'd like to start with. Something that you liked, something that you were surprised about, and something that you were particularly challenged with that you didn't think you were going to be challenged with.
We can just go in order as
Okay.
per the slide. I think that's great. And yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing that just jumps to mind is, one thing that I liked and that I observed was I liked the fact that our organization, and I think just the industry, and I might even like take it further than that, just evolved so quickly to the virtual world. So I think if had we decided that we wanted to implement Teams at NMAX, or I'm sure at a lot of organizations, there would have been a large IT project, and there would have been project managers and phases, and there have been training and change management. And one thing that I've liked about what is really an unfortunate situation overall, obviously, but what I've liked about it from perspective is it basically just trial by fire and threw us in sink or swim. It threw us into the deep end as organizations, just business acumen in general. And I think it allowed us all to evolve to a really heightened level of remote workplace, right? So that's been a huge maturity, I think, for every organization, all of our business partners. I know for our organization internally, and in a couple short days, we went from not using this enterprise systems and having 5 enterprise systems to converging on one, and from it being a bit clunky to having everyone in various different teams, across the entire company, and working with others even today via Zoom. Overnight, literally overnight, we all became experts, and I guess that was exciting for me. So I like that.
So let's drill down a little bit there on the office. Let's call it office productivity, like Office 365 and Teams and systems that link you. I'm wondering, because you did say normally it would take a very long time to implement Teams, because you'd need to get requirements from people, you'd need to figure out what the technology infrastructure pieces were changed, you'd need to look at security, can I deal with outside vendors then in Teams, and all these questions would come in, and would months and months and months of meetings. Is there a new way you're looking at sort of those office productivity or other projects that through this lens now, is that changing for you, do you think? Like you say, we've done it.
Right. Yeah. So I think a lot of technology specific organizations are used to working remotely. I'm from the utility industry, and we never leveraged the tools to this extent. So I think, yeah, we've come a long way, and I think what we've learned is, and what I like about it is I'm sure some of that utility will be here to stay after. In that, if you do want to work remotely, or your personal situation dictates it, or if you have multiple offices and you are used to making trips, I think when this all wraps up, I think everyone's going to be a little bit embrace more and be a little bit more well equipped to work remotely and still be as productive. And so I think we'll keep some of that utility that we've gained through this whole journey.
And so I know. Sorry.
So it's exciting stuff. It's great to have it in our utility belt, and we can all take it away as teams and individuals, and be a little more dynamic in how we approach each day.
Are you looking at security in a different way, like cybersecurity, or do you think?
I think we are. I mean, I know, again, it's trial by fire. I know we have some constraints with Zoom from our organization, and so for this session per se, I logged in remotely through my personal device through my house Wi-Fi. So I think everybody is taking security and compatibility on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis, and they're adjusting on the fly. And some of that some of those security assessments, I'm sure we've got lots of technology folks on the line. Typically they can have approvals and architecture sign-offs and, you know, a lot of patching and compliance processes associated with them. And so in this, again, fast-tracked, I think we're still honoring security, and probably the industry's honoring security. It's just, it was an expedited approach to it, that's all.
Oh, wow. No, that's really interesting. Yeah. So that's what you liked.
Yeah, that's what I liked.
That's what you liked. What were you surprised about when you went to remote work? When you went from managing all these pieces, now you've got your office productivity tools, you're using them in a new way, innovative ways, going in through home, going in through the office. What were you surprised about?
On this question, I think, you know, there were so many things, but what I actually did yesterday was I pulled my team and I said to them, you know, just as a roundtable, what everyone was surprised about, because I wanted to get some kind of 360 feedback and just get a wide variety of opinions. And I thought, you know, as it relates to the surprises, I thought I'd rattle off a few. I think some of them, I think folks were, you know, were hopefully they were kidding, but some of the surprises were, they range from, you know, how important ergonomics were. So a lot of people, there was a common theme that my team and I were experiencing, you know, we're surprised how always on you have to be. And that's because I think the pace has increased, and I'll talk about that more when we get to the challenges. People were surprised the day passed so quick. There were a lot of folks joke they were surprised they realized they didn't like their spouse so much. So working remotely with their spouse, or, you know, how tough it was to work with their children in the room. Lots of people, including myself, I think we're surprised about how at first it was so exciting, you know, to work from home and to have all these additional liberties and not have to travel and, you know, be able to dress for your day. And I think what we were surprised about was it was kind of a fleeting feeling. So, well, at first, for the first week or two, it was a great change of pace, but we were surprised, you know, that lots of people miss the office in terms of the social interaction. Sometimes the drive home or to or from work, it's, you know, it was rejuvenating or therapeutic. Lots of people said they missed the office because of the ergonomics and the dual screens and the printers. So, you know, I think the whole experience has been full of surprises, and we're probably still going to evolve as we get further into this and you know, more deeply understand what it truly means to be kind of a despair workforce.
So would you indulge me a bit for a sidestep here and say, and let me ask you a question around, because we talked about the freedoms, but not freedoms, it sounds like. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. Have you had, were you surprised that some people were available or not available, or has that been pretty fluid, or?
Yeah, and so, you know, that kind of takes us into the challenges. And, you know, did you want to kind of start to speak to some of the challenges? Perfect bridge.
Sure, let's do that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, you know, some of the downside or some of the challenges were the availability was kind of a blessing and a curse. And I think it's not just myself that's experiencing that. I know I read an interesting article the other day, and it was on Bloomberg. I'm not sure how many folks follow this person or not, but let me just bring it up here. Sorry, I thought I had it up.
Share your screen then.
Sorry?
Want to share your screen?
You know what? I better just leave that with you. But basically, the article went on to go through and basically said, on average, folks in North America are spending about 3 hours more per day. And so just, you know, as it relates to the challenges, one of the things that we found was that, here it is right here. So 3 hours longer, pandemic Workday has obliterated work-life balance. So I mean, that's the title of the article, and it's pretty dramatic. But it's Michelle Davies was the author. Was out on April 23rd. But I think talking about always on, one of the things that I was surprised about is everyone was available, and I think the industry and the people that I'm working with and the companies I'm personally working with, they seem to be available. And I think I can speak for myself personally, rather than driving to work for half an hour, on the way to work, on the way home, I'm typically online. And if it's lunch or 5 o'clock and someone emails me, you're at home, so you don't have a lot else to do. Not running out to the gym over lunch, or you don't have a meeting that you have to get to, so you're available, so you connect. And so I think all that extra time that people are spending behind their monitors, it's on average, I mean, experts are saying it's 3 hours. So I was surprised that everybody was available. And I think that's a general theme. Like, even if I run into neighbors and I ask them how they're doing, it does seem like longer, more full work days.
I like what you're saying here, because quite frankly, the passage of time and the notion of time and how much I can get done work-wise in amount of time is really bizarre for me right now. It's like my bar is raised for what I can get done, but then so my expectation is raised. Like, do you find it's like that, or?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. You do have more time, and everyone does. And so what they're doing is and people are talking to it from whether you use Covey or whatever framework you're using, they call it Q2 time, right? So there should be, I think people are experiencing more quadrant 2 time, which is that proactive, the amount of time that you set aside to plan the initiatives in your day and challenges. And what's happening is everybody has that, and it's compounding. And so I think what you're seeing more full days with more activity, with more initiatives underway, and competing priorities. So as it relates to the last item we talked about, challenges, is I think all of that there's some positives to it. I mean, I definitely think from a throughput or effectiveness perspective, if you have a tight project timeline, it's great. You can maybe meet your objectives. Conversely, I think some of the challenges that go along with that are work-life balance, and making sure that that people are taking breaks, and that you aren't it might not be sustainable to work 3 hours more every day in perpetuity, right? And so that's really the challenge that I've seen so far. There's one other challenge too, but I'll turn it back to you before I jump onto the kind of the other challenge that really jumped out at me.
No, I was wondering, as you were talking, I was making some notes here around when you said effectiveness, and then have you noticed that one group, like NMAX is of different groups, right? So you've got your maintenance and ops group, your projects groups, your IT groups, and is there one group that was predisposed to moving in this direction and is more productive, or do you think everyone's equally productive? Like, could you talk to that for a couple of minutes?
I think I think it's not necessarily a per group observation that I've had. When I'm seeing just the volume go up, I mean, again, just citing Bloomberg, I don't think it's NMAX specific. And again, as is mentioned, the people that I talk with that are peers or neighbors, when you see them walking the dog, standing 6 feet apart, just how's life in general, it just seems like that's the feedback that I'm getting, is that everybody is finding the experience of working remotely, more interactive, longer days, faster pace, right? So
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. That is a faster pace, even though you wouldn't think it would be a faster pace. Yeah, I'm surprised by that myself. Excellent. You said you had one more challenge to share with us.
well, and I think you just touched on it there. I mean, the challenge that challenge for me is the faster pace, and where that's coming from is the technologies are developing, and there's competing technologies now. So what I'm finding personally is, for example, we're on Zoom on this call right now. I still have Skype and Teams. I can kind of see my phone vibrating and my computer screen alerts coming up, right? So um, I'm finding, day by day, what's happening is, because everyone wants to try to get all of their work completed, you've got a full calendar. Transparency to your calendar is, that much more important, and everyone has the ability to basically see your calendar and book you. So there's no gaps. And so what happens then is the other technologies start to conflict with each other. So for example, if I'm on a meeting and I'm booked solid for the next 4 hours, and say my supervisor or a peer has something that's really burning and they want to get a hold of me, well, they'll call me. Whereas, and obviously they know that I'm booked for the next 4 hours and trying to connect with me before the end of the day, right? So you could be on one Zoom session and you could be getting basically a WebEx call or a Teams meeting invite or a Skype message, and that's really interactive too. I mean, and that's, I think, makes just for a more intensive day, and you're again back to that being on and dialed in. So
No, for sure. It's really cool. So just before we go to Q&A, because we always like to leave a abundance of time for Q&A, one thing I did get from you in the beginning was the need is driving innovation in terms of implementation, like Teams. Like, your need, let's implement it, right? Let's not spend 18 months talking about it. I mean, I'm not saying there isn't room for that. I'm just saying it's funny how we can move to that really quick, right? Super. And then you were saying, in terms of enterprise systems and the maturity of those systems, and then getting to know those systems, like you said, Zoom had the security impacts, and then what do you do with that? Now it sounds like you're using Office Skype or is it Office Skype? What is it they call it?
Well, Skype, I think, is part of Office, and they're transitioning it to Teams. So it just depends. We use both, right? So Skype through.
Yeah, yeah. And this notion of always being on, so that if someone saw that you were in your office with someone before, they'd leave you alone. Now they don't have that visual of Derek's busy. They know Derek's busy because they see it on his calendar, but for some reason, they think they can still call you.
Yeah, it's now socially acceptable, right? Because people do need to connect with each other, and so there's less just desk time, right? It's typically more meetings. So
Yeah. And where else is he anyway? What else is he doing? Putting in his laundry?
there you go.
I'm kidding. Maybe some of the self-talk is around that. No, this has been great, and thank you for polling your team too. That was really helpful, and bringing up the Bloomberg reference. That was fantastic, unexpected, but certainly good to have a business case behind it. So, analyst by heart, it seems that you are.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's not just me personally, and I don't think it's just NMAX. I think the whole city and business world is all experiencing the same kind of phenomenons.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, it's great, and thanks for being so frank with us. Kevin, how do you want to manage the questions? Are there just a few people online so we can just kind of have it free, or do we want to use the chat feature?
Either way, everybody right now everybody's muted, so you can either raise your hand or you can type a message into the chat, or just go ahead and ask. I think either way works right now. So fire away, everyone.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
We got
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm the type of person that always likes to ask a question or always likes to contribute to conversation. So I wanted to just pull a little bit more out the always on comment, because as soon as you said it, it immediately took me back to an incident from last week. So when you mean always on, you mean you're available, kind of like you were just saying, right? Whether it's 7 a.m. or 5 p.m. or arguably even later into the night, right, Derek?
Yeah, 100%. Exactly.
Initially, I was more interpreting it as the employee versus consultant angle of, as a consultant, you always have to have your professional face on, like, and not that employees aren't professional, don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but when you get trained and when you are coached in a consulting mindset, you know that you should always have your professional mask on and, you know, try to be one step ahead of the client that you're working for. And it's something I've really prescribed to since I started with a consulting firm I joined back in 1996. But what happened to me last week was, so kind of to your point too, back-to-back meetings, it's not something I've really ever experienced until now. As a project manager, you're always the one that's scheduling the meetings versus yourself putting you, you know, into a 4 to 5 hour stretch in a row. But anyway, so I had scheduled this meeting and I looked at my calendar and thought it was a different meeting. So skipped downstairs to get myself lunch and my daughter lunch. And then the one time I left my phone upstairs, I had my friend, my boss pinging me on my phone going, are you joining? Are you joining? And so I show up 15 minutes later, mortified that I've kept 15 people waiting in a meeting. And it was me thinking it was a different topic. Anyways, to make a long story short, my friend told me, don't worry, you've got a solid enough reputation that everyone just said she was probably taking care of something else. And thank God, right? And I think, so I was still somewhat panicked around the potential impact to reputation and not being on, but also knew that you know, aside from reputation, people are just being far more gracious with those types of errors or those types of mistakes. And I think that's probably a really good to highlight as well, right? We're all relating to each other as human beings or as parents or as whatever the case is, as opposed to, you know, I'm an IT consultant or, you know, I work for an energy company and you have to do these activities. So I guess it's not so much a question, maybe more of an observation.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting what you're saying around, so Derek, can you speak for a minute to what I think I hear you saying, Heidi, is around acceptance of, you know, someone who's a high performer like Heidi. What's your take on that, Derek?
Yeah, maybe what I can do is, I think there's Heidi's question, and Len had a similar question, and then Dwight and Matt had a similar question. So maybe I'll just answer Heidi's and Matt's, and then we'll probably be at the at the end of the 30 minutes. But definitely, Len basically asked in the chat. It's a similar question on, you know, how that if you don't join a meeting on time, or if people are checking in with you, is it if you have it time blocked, or if you're in another meeting, is that micromanaging or is it impromptu? And so I think a lot of that just boils down to a lot of it is trust and understanding and teamwork and open-mindedness and over communicating. And so that, I think that's what Heidi just described too, right? Like, it's, if you have some of those relationships and some of that history, you just have to be a little bit more flexible and just a little bit more trusting, and, you know, just be super patient with everyone, right? And that's what I know we're encouraging from like a leadership perspective. And, you know, just with 2 minutes left, maybe I'll just answer the last question if that works too.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just see here, chat. So it was just, you know, knowing what you know now, fully leading remotely, what actions would you have wished or taken? And then Matt said, you know, how are you doing with the new challenges? So I won't take credit for this, but so what I would do differently, what I've seen that's working really great lately, and what I would do differently right out of the chute, is, you know, I've seen some folks internally and other folks in the industry starting to adopt this. But what they're basically saying is that they've created this more virtual etiquette, if you will. And so what it means is, you know, some business practices around emailing, scheduling meetings, reaching out to people. And so it's all of the above. And so, for example, for meetings, wouldn't it be great if, everybody had ended their meeting at 10 minutes to the top of the hour? So then you can give people time back because they usually you're back to back. So then you can check on your kids, you can get a drink, you can stretch your legs, kind of work through the ergonomic stuff. For emails, would be great if, we all use these 5 headers in our subject line, and they are FYI, required decision, urgent, for your, and so on. And then finally, as it relates to interrupting people, it kind of ties back to, or being impromptu pulse checks, is if you create that time and space in people's calendars by ending meetings 10 minutes to, then, rather than having somebody jump in and you have to leave a meeting, there's space at the in between sessions to sneak in a phone call or to sneak in a touch point. So, that's what I guess. So, in summary, answering everyone's questions is, or the couple questions that were there, is that's what we would do different. And that's what's starting to really help us as it relates to those challenges.
So I like the codifying FYI for your action. I mean, we tried that 30 years ago with this software. I can't even remember the name of it, and it never worked, but now it worked. Now that would be useful. But Dwight did ask a question about knowing what you know now was leading remotely. What questions or actions would you wish you would have taken? Like if you look back, even from a personal perspective, if you don't mind sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess outside of the one that I just mentioned, which was creating some of those business practices and guidelines, I know I think obviously technology has been huge, right? So my answer would be technology and ergonomics, and we would probably, have had some of these tools a little bit more established, so they would have been ready day one when it took a week of trial by fire. And from an ergonomics perspective, I know we were all given lots of notice when we were leaving the office, and I walked right by my ergonomic keyboard and mouse and lots of stuff, right? So, I mean, I think I probably would have, I think had we done this again, now we're shipping some of that stuff out to people's houses and so on, but I think we probably could have been a bit more room to improve in that regard as well.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to take much more of your time because you probably have to have that 10 minutes now between when you start your next one.
Exactly.
It was great talking to you. I really enjoyed it. I think everyone else did too. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks for, and if anybody ever wants to just catch up offline, please don't hesitate to ping me on LinkedIn.
Great. And Kevin, will this be available on our YouTube channel?
It absolutely will. I'll have it downloaded probably in the next half hour. So I'll send that out with our next subsequent meeting, the link to our YouTube webinar sessions, and then Taleo Connects. So look forward to seeing you all very soon. Derek, thank you. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. Hope you got as much out of it as I did. And thanks again, Derek. Thanks, Kevin. Take care.
Okay. Cheers, guys.
See ya.